It happened on a Saturday evening. The air outside felt heavy and still, but inside our living room the tension was deafening. My wife had just come back from coffee with her ex. I didn't say much when she walked in, yet my chest tightened. There was something in the way she smiled, carefree and detached, that made my skin crawl. I finally asked, trying to keep my voice steady, "Do you really have to keep meeting him?" She looked at me with that playful grin, the same smile that used to melt me, now feeling like a blade. Then she laughed, short and cruel, slicing right through me. "It's funny," she said, mockery dripping from every word. "You get jealous every time I see him. Maybe it means you're not enough." For a moment I couldn't breathe. Her words hung in a room like poison. My throat closed up. I wanted to shout, to demand respect, but her laughter had already taken my dignity. She leaned back on the couch, scrolling her phone, still smirking at my silence. I turned away, fists clenched, and went into the bedroom, replaying her words over and over. "Maybe you're not enough." That night I lay beside her, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind kept returning to the early days. How she admired my strength. How she used to say I was the only man who made her feel safe. Now she compared me to the past, and I was losing. I realized I'd given her too much power, and she'd grown bold enough to humiliate me in my own home. The next morning I behaved like nothing was wrong. I made breakfast, spoke gently, and smiled when she mentioned she might meet him again. Inside, though, a fire burned. I decided I wouldn't confront her with anger or beg her to stay. I would teach her a lesson she'd never forget. Over the next week, I shifted everything. I stopped waiting for her texts, stopped asking about her plans. I went out more, hit the gym, reconnected with friends I'd neglected for years. She noticed. One evening, she asked why I wasn't home when she called. I shrugged and said I had better things to do. Her smirk started to falter. As days passed, she began checking my phone under the guise of casual curiosity. Once I caught her staring at me while I dressed for a dinner with colleagues. "Who's going to be there?" she asked, voice sharper than usual. I smiled politely. "Does it matter? You don't seem to care what I do." By the second week, she was restless. She canceled her meetups with him and tried to plan things with me. But I no longer chased her. I didn't refuse her outright. I simply stopped being eager. The balance shifted, and she felt it. That's when I set my plan in motion. Our wedding anniversary was near, and she'd been bragging to friends about how I always spoiled her with gifts and dinners. I told her I'd planned a special surprise at an upscale restaurant. She lit up, glowing like a bride again, promising everyone pictures of the night. On the evening itself, she dressed beautifully, expecting romance. I drove her to the restaurant, and when we walked in, she froze. At the reserved table sat her closest friends, her parents, and even her ex, whom I had personally invited. Confusion spread across her face, but before she could speak, I stood and raised my glass. "Everyone," I announced, my voice steady, "thank you for coming. Tonight isn't just about celebrating our marriage. It's about honesty." I reminded the room of what she'd said, how she'd laughed and suggested maybe I was enough. And I wanted everyone there so she could explain why she still met him and mocked her husband's love. The room went silent. Her face drained of color, her eyes wide. She stammered denials. But whispers had already started. Her parents looked horrified. Her friends stared in disgust. And even her ex shifted uncomfortably. I didn't let her recover. I pulled out a folder with the divorce papers I prepared and placed them on the table before her. "You're right," I said coldly. "I'm not enough, not for someone like you. But I will be more than enough for someone who values loyalty and respect. Tonight is the last time you laugh at me." She broke down, begging me not to end things this way, but her tears were useless. Everyone had seen her true face. The humiliation she once enjoyed at my expense now belonged only to her. I walked out of that restaurant free, leaving her surrounded by the ruins of her pride. For the first time in a long while, I felt powerful again. She had laughed at me once. Now the world was laughing at her. That was my revenge, not with anger or violence, but by stripping the mask she wore and revealing the cruel woman beneath.